私も見ましたよ。
泳いでる人がじゃあ背の高い。
聞きました。一応水と塩素は12月までは募集が。
そう。12月まで泳ぐんだ。
できればウェットスーツがサウナでたところに行く。 は
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. I'm Dan Sloan, president of the organization. Well, Japanese history was made this weekend after the ruling Liberal Democratic Party selected its new leader, Representative Sanae Takaichi, who will likely become the nation's next prime minister. This morning, if you're looking at financial markets, they're talking about the Takaichi trade as the Nikkei soars, the yen sinks, and bonds are in flux. The 64-year-old conservative is a former government minister, TV host, and reportedly an avid heavy metal drummer. More on that later. Seriously, though, the FCCJ is honored today and in this timely moment to have Professor Gerald Curtis with us. He is one of America's foremost scholars of Japanese politics. He will analyze the LDP vote and what lies ahead for Japan in its next premier. Takaichi has called herself many things, including Japan's Margaret Thatcher, but whether that is an apt comparison or just wishful thinking, we will leave to our guest. I first saw Professor Curtis in a video about Japan some 4 decades ago at a Mamusho English Fellow training session, and later met him in the early 1990s when he was running Columbia SIPA and the department there. I was a J School student. Our guest, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at Columbia and chairman of the Maureen and Mike Mansfield Foundation, is widely regarded as a leading authority on Japanese politics, with decades of research and writing shaping how both scholars and policymakers understand Japanese democracy. In books such as Election Campaigning, Japanese Style, The Japanese Way of Politics, The Logic of Japanese Politics, Politics and Salary, 45 Years Living with Japan, Japan Story, he has tutored individuals and governments on Japanese policymaking. For his contributions over the years, he was a recipient of the Order of the Rising Sun, Gold and Silver Star from the Emperor. I should note that October is salary season, and the 2025 catch has shown a recovery in fish size and number. Can this recovery herald an LDP rebound under a Prime Minister Takeichi? To answer these and many other questions, with no further ado, Professor Curtis.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. You know, when FCCJ was in Yurakucho, I used to be there all the time, and I would give a speech at least once a year so I could get a free membership for the following year. This is only the second time I've been here, and second time, and I had trouble even finding where the room was. So I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted that now I'll have another year of membership, and I plan to be back more often. So I split my time between New York and Tokyo. Before the pandemic, I was here about half of the year each year. Then the pandemic, I wasn't here for almost 3 years. And now I'm sort of back, and it's really just a question of whether my health, you know, if I'm healthy, I'll be on an airplane going in one direction or the other, and we'll see how long that lasts. But I'm glad I'm here now. I got here about 3 weeks ago, and of course the timing was very fortuitous. I'm leaving on the 26th, and Trump is showing up on the 27th, so that may be fortuitous as well. But anyway, I've seen lots of elections here for a long time. I've been in this Japan watching game since the mid-'60s. I lived in Japan for the first time in 1964, which leads me to make just an advertisement here. I did, in Nikkei Shimbun has Watashi no Dekisho, and I wrote it last year. It was published last December. And now I've done an English version, expanded version, and that's appearing right now in Nikkei Online, in Nikkei Asia. If you have a chance, please take a look at it. There's some of it I think you might find of interest about how I ended up sitting up here and spending so much of my life involved with Japan, for which I had absolutely no reason to be involved with until I was involved with it. Anyway, if you have a chance to take a look at it, I'd appreciate it. So as I said, I've seen lots of election campaigns. This is the most boring election campaign of all that I've ever seen in Japan. The reason is quite simple. None of the candidates wanted to say anything that was controversial. Everybody played it safe. Everybody was on the defensive. All the candidates are at a loss as to what to say the LDP should do or Japan should do to deal with its problems. This is the main lesson to take away from this election. The LDP governance model has expired. Its shomikigen, its use-by date, is past. You listen not only to the candidates, but to any of the party leaders. They say this is a crisis for the LDP. Well, you would think in a crisis, you would have some ideas about how to overcome the crisis. What was the ideas of the 5 candidates? Hold each other's hands, say we're a team, we're going to work together. Why would anybody be inspired to vote for any of them? I think it's so as I said, this is a very meaningful election in the sense that it has there was no real substance to it, and it just shows, I think, some point I'm going to come back to again a little later, but it shows that something very basic is changing in Japan. And it's kind of the same thing that's happening in all our democracies. All our mainstream parties are losing support. Not only the ruling party, but mainstream opposition parties as well. So in the U.S., it's not only the Republican support has been going down, the Democratic Party support is going down faster and further. And all these countries, all our democracies, are growing extremist parties, whether it be the National Rally in France, Reform UK in Britain, AFD in Germany, MAGA in the US, or Sanseito here. And I think one reason why Takaichi got elected is that the LDP conservatives are really scared by Sanseito. Not only that they're going to do well in the next lower house election, they're going to do well in the next unified local elections, which is in 2 years. And so the party played defensive. They decided they wanted someone who would hold on to the LDP supporters, not someone who would reach out beyond the LDP supporters and get broader support among the public. In 1991, the LDP had 5.4 million members. Today it has 900,000. Where did they all go? And it was interesting. In 1991, Japan's population was the same as it is today, 124 million. But after 2013, after 2012, after the LDP came back, the most they had was they had 1.2 million 1.4 million in 2020. Then, as I said, it's down to 900,000. So you would think, or you might think, that it's kind of a losing game to say we're going to play defensive and get our voters to come out and vote and not pay much attention to the other voters because they're not members of the party, and expect that this is going to lead eventually to doing well in the next lower house election. There's no connection there. So this is just an indication that that something serious is going on here, and it's not what the LDP says it is. It's not that they can't hold themselves, they can't cooperate with each other. It's that they have no message to the Japanese people that anybody finds really very interesting or very important, or that responds to their concerns. So yes, everybody talked about high prices, and either you're going to lower the consumption tax or you're going to give some subsidies. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that you have to do something. So they're all promising to do that, one thing or another. But who's talking about long-term demographic change and what to do about it? Who's talking about growing inequality? You have people talk about, the gaijin are taking over all the expensive apartments, and Takaichi, put her toes in the water and criticized gaijin for beating up on deer in Nara Park. But even they all backed away from getting too xenophobic, because that's Sanseito's brand. So in the end, what happened? Koizumi, who last year didn't do well, but still gives the impression of he's charismatic, he's charming, he's handsome, he's 44. People are excited that Japan, some people at least, are excited that Japan has its first female prime minister. Yeah, female. She's female, that's for sure, as far as I know. She's female, but she's no equal rights, feminist of any kind whatsoever. She doesn't think, only the tendo can only be through the male line. She's opposed to separate, women or retaining their maiden name after marriage. There's nothing about her that should make women feel, wow, now we have a champion. But she got 40% of the vote among the party members. I'm going to details, but I think you're all familiar that to become the president of the LDP, it's a two-stage affair. And in the first one, there's all the LDP members, 295 of them, and the same number of local LDP members in prefectures. They vote, and if anybody wins a majority, that's the new president. But nobody did. So it came down to the top two, which was Takeichi and Shinjiro Koizumi. Jump to my bottom line. I think Takeichi's victory is going to hasten the decline and eventual collapse of the LDP. It's not if, it's just when. And it could happen fairly soon. Dan mentioned that she thinks of Margaret Thatcher as her role model. Just to give credit where credit is due, I got this from Jeff Kingston, who made the point, well, she may end up being more Liz Truss than Margaret Thatcher, who lasts a couple of months and be gone. She probably lasts a little longer than that, but I don't, this is going to be a very rough road for her to hold. If you look back, thinking back on the election campaign, I mean, Shinjiro was in a good spot to win. At the beginning, he was popular and had even at the end, he had more Diet member support in the first round than she did. He was number one. But in the old days, when you had good, real factions and smart faction bosses, they would have invariably have concluded, as the first round came to an end, the only way to defeat Takeichi is to have an alliance between Koizumi and Hayashi. And if that meant that maybe let Hayashi become prime minister first and have a deal where Koizumi would be next, that would have worked. Or if Hayashi could have been convinced to withdraw and turn and say he's supporting Koizumi, that could have worked. They didn't do anything like that. So it tells you about, I write in this Nikkei series about people like Takeshita and Nakasone and Koizumi and their raw political skill and how much they loved the game of politics. That's not what you see today. You see a lot of salarymen types. You see a lot of people who are trying to sell their charisma, but don't have that what LDP leaders had in the past, which is an instinct for survival. Whatever happened, they're going to survive, and they'll do whatever it takes to survive. You need to have that. Koizumi's father had it. Takeshita, who was a good friend of mine, he had it. A lot of them had it. I don't see it today, so that's the situation. Now, what is Takeichi likely to do? Well, we know what she wants to do. She wants a big fiscal expansion. I think she's in real danger of quickly making enemies both of MAF and of the BOJ. If you listen to her press conference after winning the election, she said, don't forget, it's the government that is responsible not only for fiscal policy, but for monetary policy as well. And basically, in effect, almost declaring war on Ueda and the BOJ. Never mentioned the word independence. They're talking about the BOJ, that the BOJ has independence. It's not part of the government. Never mentioning that. She has a curious, I noticed this first the other day. When she wants to say something serious and maybe a little nasty, she gets a forced smile on her face and then kind of a menacing tone in her voice. The combination is kind of interesting. So that was the way she was talking about the BOJ. Now, you know the MAF is scared to death of her running away with this fiscal spending, and they will resist it. We'll see who becomes the finance minister. I'm sure she'll try to have somebody in there that'll be on her side on pushing for more fiscal spending. But I don't think she's going to get away with it. So I don't think that all that much is going to happen. It's hard to see what policy she can push, which would probably lead her to want to emphasize so-called cultural issues, constitutional revision, putting that as a priority. If she does, that sucks so much of the energy, so much of the oxygen out of the room, and nothing else will get done. So I don't think it's going anywhere. She's not going to go to Yasukuni unless she's really looking for trouble with China and with Korea. So what is she going to do? Just try to hold things together. And if it looks as though she's getting some popularity because she's the first female, maybe dissolve the House. But before that, she has a big problem, right? Which is nothing can pass without the support of one or more opposition parties, because the LDP has only minority status in both the House, in both the lower house and the upper house. Can she reach out to the constitutional Democrats or to Ishin no Kai? Maybe easier with Ishin, but they're going to demand a lot. First, I don't think they're going to enter a coalition. Much better, if I were in the opposition, much better to stay out of the government and just use your bargaining chips, use your power to force the LDP to do what you want on raising the minimal level of income to be subject to income tax, eliminating the so-called temporary gasoline tax, which I think is to 1974. So my guess is that you're going to have these extended negotiations over specific issues without a coalition government, at least for a while. It makes it very difficult to get very much done. Let me. I've already got it. Am I okay?
We'll take 30 minutes of questions, so please continue.
Okay. So I want to switch the subject a little bit away from the election in particular to what is this moment in Japanese history politically? It's kind of the same moment it is in the U.S. and all our democracies. It's a moment when the post-war system has completely ended. The post-war system, meaning a system of kind of rules-based international order that was orchestrated by and managed by the United States, by its military power and its determination and its support for free trade, effort to try to keep conflict, or at least not involving the major nuclear powers, and so forth and so on. For a long time in Japan, some of you will recall, there was a debate that went on in the Japanese press about Sengo wa itsu owatta ka? When did the post-war end? We know now. So the post-war didn't end overnight. The post-war system ending was gradual. But we can now put a definitive date on when it ended. That was January 20th, 2025, the day that Donald Trump was reelected as president, because he rejects all the assumptions and all the content of the so-called post-war liberal international order. Doesn't believe in free trade. Believes in protectionism, right? Now, he's not the first. One of the indications that he's in some ways more a beneficiary of these changes than actually the instigator of them is that in the 2016 election that he won, not only Trump. First of all, Obama decided not to try to submit the TPP to the Senate because he wouldn't get through. And then not only Trump, but the great free trader Hillary Clinton came out against TPP in the course of that campaign. So one thing to draw from that is Trump will be gone, we hope, when the next president election is held. But some of the key positions he's taken are not going to be gone. I would say a very tough line on immigration, whether it's Democrat or Republican that succeeds Trump. We're not going back to the kind of loose enforcement of the immigration laws, allowing so-called undocumented, meaning illegal entrance in the United States from staying here. That age, that's over. Maybe, hopefully it won't be done with the kind of cruelty and brutality that Trump is imposing on us. Free trade, it's hard to find a supporter of free trade in either the Democratic or the Republican Party. The idea that now that globalization has been great for big business and really a disaster for average working class people, that's very widespread in the United States. So I'm not saying it's all due to Trump, but he has taken this trend, accelerated it, and turned it into a forceful policy. And it means this post-war system is over. So what does that mean? It means you can depend allies. In the post-war system, the U.S. was committed to help its allies, and it was committed to the idea that everybody has to benefit, not just the U.S. Trump is a zero-sum negotiator. He wants it all. And it reminds you how much power the U.S. has. It has the power to really shake the Europeans in their boots and to force the Japanese to fork over $550 billion as a blank check for Trump to use as he prefers. This is raw power. I would say the U.S. has not, from time to time, used raw power to force allies to do things that they didn't really want to do, but nothing like this. This is a new game. How does Japan play this new game? That is the question that none of these characters who ran for the LDP president has any ideas about. How do you play this game? Well, the first answer is you can't afford to alienate the president of the country on which you depend for your security. And there's no way Japan can get around depending on the United States when push comes to shove to help to defend it. So you need an alliance with the U.S. The danger, I think, with Takaichi is that there are basically two schools of thought, I think, among the conservatives about the alliance. One is that we need the U.S. The U.S. is trustworthy. We'll depend on the U.S. The other is we need the U.S. until we don't need the U.S., until we can do it on our own and become more autonomous. I think Takaichi's probably in the latter school. But in any case, Japan needs the alliance with the U.S. But is that enough? I've been talking to a lot of Japanese businessmen and politicians, especially younger politicians. Occasionally, but only very occasionally, do I get an intelligent answer. Usually it's, well, what are we going to do kind of attitude. But the answer is that there's a big, Trump's policies provide not only a problem, but a real opportunity for Japan. An opportunity for Japan to play as a kind of a leading middle power, to play a key role in dealing with helping with the global South deal with its problems, increasing trade and investment with the global South, and providing humanitarian aid and so on. I mean, after all, the U.S. has eliminated USAID. You would think that this is an area where Japan, which stresses its human values of democracy and sovereignty and the rest, where they might see an opportunity to do more in the area of humanitarian aid. You don't hear much about it. Free trade. Here I give Prime Minister Abe a lot of credit. He pushed for he saved TPP with this, rewriting it as CPTPP, and RCEP and all these other international organizations, international agreements. He pushed for the Quad, and in other ways trying to maintain, build kind of a community. Especially with Southeast Asia. That's where we need to hear what Japanese politicians think the country could do in a positive, constructive manner to make the world a safer place, especially to make this region a safer place. But unless I'm going deaf, at anything, at my age, anything is possible, including that. I don't hear anybody saying things like that. And so I think that this we talk about turning points, and it comes a cliche because things are always turning. But this is a major turning point in Japanese history. And my sense is either they turn and discover the courage to take risk and to develop a new strategies, or this country will slowly, rather gently, but assuredly sink, become weaker. Living standards, those of you who've been living here a long time, no doubt know. Living standards are going down. The evidence of inequality and all the Ferraris running around Minato-ku show that these income disparities are growing very big. Japan, unfortunately, is becoming more like us. And one consequence is the rise of a party like Sanseito. Now, we don't know how they're going to do in the next election, but the support for them is pretty impressive, and they're spending so much time developing, recruiting candidates for local elections, and then build up from there. So there's a lot going on, a lot to talk about. Maybe I better stop and open it up for questions.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Curtis. We are live streaming today's press conference on YouTube. We will be likely getting questions from our viewers online. But I'd like to open the floor for our working press here. Please identify yourself, your organization, and because we have so many folks, please try to limit yourself to one question and no speeches. And
Anthony Rowley, South China Morning Post nowadays. Thank you for a very sobering analysis. I certainly agree with you that Trump's policies open up opportunities for Japan, but presumably that has to be seen in the context of Japan-China relations. Now, what do you think this election outcome means for Japan-China relations and for initiatives from both sides?
Thank you. Of course, I should have put that in my remarks. It's hard to know at Takeichi what it means. And if it had been Hayashi or Koizumi, they would have looked for ways to develop. It would have been easy to answer the question. Dealing with China is very tough. We have to be strong, keep the alliance strong to keep them from being so aggressive, expansionist, and so on. But we have to look for ways to cooperate. And you can't just turn your head away from the largest economy in the world, which is right next door. You have to find a way to get along with them. That's common sense. Does she have common sense or not? I'm not sure. I think the danger with her is that she'll focus so hard on the security issues and sort of further poison the environment in relations between between Japan and China. But it's hard to know. In the end, of course, she's the prime minister. She's not a president like Donald Trump is a president. And nobody has been a president like Donald Trump has been president, who has gone out to find every possible way to expand the powers of the presidency. This is not Sanae Takaichi. She wants to hang around for a while. And so my guess is that she won't do very much about much. And on China, you just have to hope that, or I hope, that she takes a more balanced position. Japan, we all need Japan to have a good relationship with China, in my view. We need Japan also to reduce its dependence on China, on the supply chains going through China and so on, as we do too. But you have to at least make the effort to normalize relations and avoid war, and whether it be say whether it be Taiwan or somewhere else. So Taiwan is a big issue. She's very pro-Taiwanese. I can't imagine that she would actually go forward and sort of recognize Taiwan as an independent country unless Trump goes first. And that's a danger. So I think the danger maybe with Takaichi is that Trump will do things like, we're not going to go to war to defend Taiwan, and basically giving the in his way saying, I trust the Chinese. They're not going to do anything now, but basically giving them a green light. Or he's going to APEC. It's in Malaysia. Next when he comes out here. Maybe there's nothing to it, but the thought that he might have a side meeting with Kim Jong-un, not impossible. That Trump will say, they have nuclear weapons. We all know they have nuclear weapons. We got to get rid of them. Why don't we just accept that, recognize them as a nuclear armed state, and normalize relations? That's not an impossibility. What does that do to Japan's relations with South Korea? Well, what does it do with South Korea? It just encourages South Korea to go nuclear itself. But whether the Chinese may be playing some sort of a mediator role with North Korea and the U.S., no one knows. But you got to, so I guess I'll just stop by saying that I'm not sure what Takaichi or Trump will do, but Takaichi is not going to get out in front of Trump on China issues if she can help it. And the Chinese may try to encourage, they can either encourage Takaichi to get along with them and then make it difficult for the U.S., or do the reverse and just beat up on Japan. I really don't know, but I think that's the situation with China.
Yes, sir.
Takuya Nishimura, freelance writer. As you have seen some moves inside LDP after the presidential election, do you think the LDP is going back to an old type party dominated by factions and with heavyweights, or do you see any chance for the LDP to emerge as a new type of party, attracting young voters with interest in the social network services? Thank you.
In a way, I see it going. In a way, factions never really disappeared, and the key former faction leaders who are still powerful include Aso, of course, and Kishida, and Motegi. Probably those three more than others. But factions are not what they were. So the idea that factions operate as a unified group, that the faction leader provides the funds and the faction members provide the loyalty to the faction leader. That's all in the past. So they're weaker. The faction system, yeah, it exists, but it's much weaker. Except you got to give 85-year-old Aso Taro credit for having pulled off this Takaichi victory in the end by saying that he asked his faction members to vote for the candidate who got the most votes among the Toin, among the party members in the first round, knowing that that was Takaichi, was his way to get her in. So, you know, it's worth remembering. In that first round, among the Diet men, Koizumi got 80 votes. Takaichi, Hayashi came in second with 72, and Takaichi placed third with only 64 votes. That's why I said before, if Koizumi and Hayashi had formed an alliance, one of the two would become party president. But in the second round, Takaichi got more. Remember, the first round, Koizumi got the most, 80. In the second round, Takaichi got the most. She was third in the second round. Takaichi got 149 Diet member seats. So there was a huge shift to her, and a lot of it had to do with Aso. So I don't underestimate Aso's importance, but I don't, and I hope he lives long because he's 2 days younger than I am, and I'm not planning to disappear yet. So I expect he'll want to hang around for a while. But you know, his days as a major kingmaker, he is the last real kingmaker, and I think they're just about coming to an end. So, as I said in my opening comments, the problem with the LDP is they don't know who they want, how they're going to reach the voters that they're not reaching, and that's what you thought that especially Shinjiro Koizumi, I thought he would come out and have ideas that would excite young people, that would excite middle-aged people. You know, the generation of people in their 40s who sort of came into maturity with the global economic crisis. They're not happy people. They're not happy with the LDP. A lot of people are not happy with the LDP. So you would think the LDP would try to figure out, okay, what do you do that to make them appreciate you? And their only answer is spend money. This is Takaichi's answer. Spend more money. Fiscal expansion. Tell the BOJ, sorry folks, but you may think you have independence, but we're not going to let you normalize monetary policy and slowly raise rates. That's where they're at. So I just want to emphasize once again, this country and this party is at a dead end. It has to either find a new route or it's going to disappear. And if it disappears, then you're going to have an extended period of weak government, changing musical chairs as far as the prime minister. And in the meantime, the policies that need to be confronted will be kicked down the road. So I don't want to sound overly pessimistic, but it's hard to be optimistic about this situation at the moment, particularly when you listen to these LDP people who don't have a clue as to what they should do.
Yes, sir, and then we'll come to you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Professor Gerald Curtis. My name is Youngjae Choi, a Korean journalist, Asia Today Tokyo correspondent. The U.S.-Japan alliance restaurant closed coordination between Tokyo and Seoul. But the new LDP leader, Ms. Takeichi, has made hardline remarks on territorial and historical issues with South Korea and the Korean Peninsula issue. How do you think Washington will view or respond to this stance?
I'm cautiously optimistic about Japan-Korea relations. I think even the right-wing people like Takeichi understand that for Japanese security, having a strong trilateral relationship with Korea and the U.S. is critical. So I think whatever she thinks about the long Japanese occupation of Korea or pre-war treatment of Koreans or Yasukuni Shrine, my sense is she will not put that up front and try to focus on the security relationship and the economic relationship. There's no benefit for anybody from a return to bad Japan-Korea relations. I think that is better understood in Japan now than it was even a year ago. So that's my sense. I think, and my sense is that the Korean government has been dealing with Japan very effectively, the new government, and talking about the importance of a positive relationship and not making a big deal of the difficulties in that relationship. So I think if both countries' leaders act with are mature and sober, they will recognize the national interest is in getting along. I think the chances of that happening are much better than the reverse, which is kind of return to his only hostile actions.
All right. Yes, sir. Over here. And then I'll be taking a question from our online viewer. Please go ahead.
Good to see you. Thank you for your speech. I'm Fujita, a senior staff writer of the Asahi Shimbun. My question is, how do you predict Trump's reaction if Takaichi visits Yasukuni Shrine? I'm asking this because, as you know, Takaichi is a pro-Yasukuni Shrine politician, and as you know, U.S. government basically dislikes Japanese Prime Minister's Yasukuni Shrine visit in terms of Tokyo trial or A-class war criminal. But I guess Trump may be somewhat different about this kind of history problem, because when recently new South Korean president visited White House in August, Trump persuaded him to have good relationship with Japan in terms of comfort woman problem. So I'm glad to have your
terms of what?
Comfort woman problem. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad to have your comment. Thank you.
Well, nobody knows what Trump's reaction is going to be to anything. He couldn't care less about the history issue. He couldn't. I'm sure he doesn't care whether she goes to Yasukuni or not, unless it makes life difficult for him. If it makes it difficult for him, then he doesn't want it. And so, if she goes to Yasukuni, the Chinese reaction will be extreme. The Korean reaction will not be happy. It will be very, very negative. That makes life really difficult for Donald Trump. Why is she doing this to me over some goddamn visit to a place where there are no graves anyway? It's just their souls supposedly are there. You can just hear him telling his buddies in the White House, doesn't make any sense. What's the matter with her? That would be my guess. So, and for other reasons as well. I can't, you know, it would be so foolish of her, especially in her first year, to create a major diplomatic incident because she wants to go to Yasukuni Shrine. Yeah, I get it. You know, she doesn't need it for domestic political purposes. She's popular with the right enough. She has to go to Yasukuni to prove to the right-wingers that she's on their team. They know she's on their team. They're very happy with her. So for all those reasons, I suspect that Trump would not be happy, and he would make his unhappiness known if she did things to screw up his relationships with Korea and with China. And once she got the message, she'd back off.
Okay, our next question comes from online. There are two that are very similar, one from Rocky Swift of Reuters and another from Keldon Nazari of Pan Orient News. Essentially, in the past, sometimes heads of state here have at least taken notice of financial market reaction. Rocky notes that there's been a huge jump in JGB yields that has obviously impact on borrowing and the economy. Is she going to notice, or how significant will it be, financial market volatility or activity on either selecting finance minister or policy in general?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. Mainly, I think choosing the finance minister, she wants someone who supports her position on fiscal expansion. Whether that person would have the clout to corral the bureaucrats who will be very much opposed to what she wants to do, hard to know, hard to see. But as I said earlier, on these economic issues, I think she runs a real danger of creating enemies among the most important ministries and affiliated organizations in Japan. So again, you know, since we don't know what she's going to really try to do, it's easy to jump to the conclusion she can't do very much. Her first, to put things back in perspective here, her first job is to figure out how to create a relationship with opposition parties so they can get some legislation passed that needs to pass. And it's not going to be by forming a coalition, I don't believe. I don't think any opposition party leader who's thinking right is going to join a coalition with the LDP at this point. But so it'll be this bubun rengo, you know, partial coalitions, agreements on policy issues. That's what she needs to do. That you assume that she wants to stay in office for a while. That invariably will pull her more towards the center and away from some of the right-wing positions she's had. The difference between her and Abe Shinzo, though, is really important. She is a, you know, kind of almost talks of herself as a clone of Abe. She wants to go back to his Abenomics and security policy and so on. So you know what she wants to do, because she wants to do what Abe left undone. But there's a big difference. Abe was a strategist. He had a strategy. And looking back on it, you have to give the man a lot of credit, especially on defense issues. He did it in a very orderly, thought-out manner, from limited collective defense to increased defense spending and so on. She doesn't have any strategy. She has emotions. She's a right-winger in kind of cultural terms. She thinks only men should be emperor of Japan. You can't have an empress. She doesn't, even though she uses her maiden name, it's so weird. She doesn't use the name of her husband. but she doesn't think that legally a woman should have the right to keep her maiden name. I mean, there are other issues as well about gender equality, where she's more like in the old days, Phyllis Schlafly, who was the anti-feminist woman. This is Takaichi. So I don't know. People get all excited about Takaichi becoming prime minister, having the first female. It would have been a hell of a lot more exciting if Shinjiro Koizumi would have become the youngest prime minister since Ito Hirobumi, who was Japan's first prime minister. That would have been exciting. Whether the excitement would have lasted or turned into a disaster, well, we don't know. But nothing exciting about a right-wing female becoming head of a party, except in Japan, it's so unusual. There are other women here who would be much more qualified for that position, and they eventually will emerge. I think maybe that's one thing, maybe one accomplishment of Takaichi is to break the ice on the idea that a woman can become prime minister. So there are other women out in the wings that will now make their game known. The financial markets are acting so weird. Up one day, down to up today. The initial reaction was kind of negative. I can't make it's a casino, I think, and in a casino sometimes people place a bet, they win and they lose. I can't read much into it.
All right. I believe there was a question over here. Yes, sir. And then we have one more online, and that will probably take us to time.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Kenji from Nikkei, so I'm very thankful for you writing the lecture for us. Yeah, I'm running it right now in English. Well, okay, my question is on the coalition. Not the potential coalition member, but the existing one. Komeito has been strongly hinting immediately after Takaichi was elected that Mr. Saito came out saying that, okay, well, he really straightforward sort of fear of having her in the LDP. So what is your thought on the Komeito's position, the existing coalition framework, and if there is a case where Komeito is going to drop out, be much less on the LDP side, what is going to happen if that long-lasting link between coalition between LDP and Komeito is to fall apart? Thank you.
You know, I had a talk just 2 days ago with a former leader of the Komeito, who's actually become a good friend of mine, who was very pessimistic about his party because they don't really have any option. If you leave the coalition, then you have no leverage whatsoever. But to stay in this coalition, especially with Ishin being courted by the LDP, which is their major competitor in Kansai, they're really at something of a loss. And the biggest problem for the Komeito is it's aged. It's becoming its membership is getting so old that, again, almost like with the LDP itself, recruiting younger people is a real problem. So I think the chances are probably better than not that the Komeito stays in the coalition. The LDP needs every vote it can get, so the LDP will make some compromises with it on issues that are important to it and keep on giving it a cabinet position, which is useful for them. And the Komeito will continue to lose seats. That is my sense. So as I mentioned earlier, and I'll conclude with this, there's nothing unique about what's going on in Japan. What's going on here right now is what's going on in all our democracies. For a lot of complicated reasons, the popularity of mainstream political parties is declining. The voters' motivation to act on the basis of anger and resentment, rather than looking for ways for cooperation and unity, is increasing, which means you have a fragmentation of support for parties, including for new extreme parties, especially on the right. But we'll see them on the left as well. That is our common problem. And if the Japanese are not careful, they're going to end up like us. And I don't wish that on anybody.
Professor Curtis, I'm going to take the liberty to ask the final question. And
that fellow had
I'm sorry.
His hand is getting tired because he's been up in the episode.
Final question. Go ahead.
Thanks for asking the last question. My name is Diederik Baziel from writing for a Dutch newspaper. We said a lot about Takaichi, but if I understand correctly, she's also one of the first possible prime ministers that isn't from a long family line of leaders in Japan. Can you say something about how special that is, and if that's something that voters in Japan would like or help get votes?
Well, it's unusual, that's for sure. I mean, you think back, you think about who gets to be PM. Not all of them have been legacy candidates, but there are far too many legacy politicians in Japan. It's just like flower arranging and the tea ceremony. And I don't see that situation getting better initially, but it's different from the old days in that the people who get elected now, so many of them, not all of them, but many of them weren't particularly intent on becoming politicians, but daddy dies and mama says you have to carry on the family tradition. They don't make very good politicians. There are others, for example, Shinjiro, who was my student at Columbia. I remember when we were chatting, and he said, my father said to me, there's no reason for you to become a politician. You need to become what you want to be, what you want to do. You make up your own mind. I don't want you to become a politician because I'm a politician. And he told me this. And then he actually came back to Japan on a visit, and he came back to New York. He said, I want to talk to you. I have something to tell you. And so when we met, and he said, I was thinking about what I want to do, and what I really want to do is I want to be in politics. I want to run for the Diet. It had nothing to do with my father. I just, this is where my passion is. That's important to have that kind of passion for it. So some of them do. Now Takaichi, she's she's totally different because you say she doesn't have that kind of a family background. I don't think she's been a heavy drummer, heavy metal drummer for a long time, but apparently she did do that when she was young. It doesn't quite fit with her image, but anyway. I don't think she's going to get much mileage out of it, frankly. I think for a lot of Japanese voters, the idea that Hayashi's father was in the upper house, that other Araso's grandfather is it Yoshida. This is just the way it is in Japan. I wouldn't make too much of it.
All right, well, with that, we'll conclude today's session. Professor Curtis is spending more time in Japan, and consequently, as a sign of our thanks, we will extend another one-year honorary membership. We hope you use it frequently. I know you're leaving later this month, but our 80th anniversary event is in November, and if you're here, by all means, please come.
We'll be back.
All right. Very good.
Thank you, then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. He's still a very interesting character. And he has good insights on what's going on.
But he's not active.
I don't think he has any. I don't think he has much influence.
Good to see you, Nancy. Yeah.